caught the baby perfectly. Then the infant started to cry. "Gary, no!" I shouted at Sinigi. He was running again.
"Are you ready to die, Dr. Cross? Are you ready?"
Sinigi disappeared through the silver metallic door at the rear of the platform. Pistol shots rang out. Groza fired, but I didn't think Sinigi had been hit. "There's more tunnels back there. Lots of train tracks down there," Groza told me. I noticed a maintenance worker and grabbed his flashlight. I pulled out my Glock. 12 shots. Groza had a .357 Magnum. 6 more rounds. How many shots would it take to kill Sinigi? "He's wearing a goddamn vest," Groza said. "Yeah, I saw that." I clicked the safety off the Glock. I opened the door through which Sinigi had disappeared, and it was suddenly as dark as a tomb. I leveled the barrel of the Glock in front of me and continued forward. This was the cellar, all right. His private hell on a very large scale. "Are you ready to die, Dr. Cross?" "Jesus," Groza muttered at my back. "You see anything?" "Nothing," I whispered. Then I heard a scream right on top of me. My neck and back stiffened. It was Groza. He went down. I had no idea what had hit him. He didn't make another sound, didn't move on the tunnel floor. I whirled around. Couldn't see anyone at first. I caught a flash of Siniji's face, one eye and half his mouth, in dark profile. He hit me before I could get the Glock up. A punch to the left temple. I remembered how incredibly strong he was, and how crazy he had become. My ears rang, and my head was spinning. My legs were wobbly. He'd almost taken me out with the first punch. Maybe he could have. But he wanted to punish me. Wanted his revenge, his payback. Sinigi had me wrapped in his arms. I could smell his breath. He tried to crush me with his arms. White lights flickered and danced before my eyes. I was nearly out on my feet. I butted with my head. It took him by surprise. His grip loosened, and I broke away for a second. I threw the hardest punch of my life, and I heard the crunch of his jaw. Sinigi didn't go down.
"You can't hurt me. You're going to die. You can't stop it from happening. You can't stop this now."
Gary Sinigi came at me again. I finally raised the Glock, got it out. I fired, and although it happened fast, it seemed like slow motion. The shot bulldozed through his lower jaw. It must have blown his tongue away, his teeth. He staggered several steps down the darkened tunnel. I don't know where he got the strength. I was too tired to chase him, but I knew I didn't have to. He fell toward the stone floor. He dropped like a dead weight, and as he hit the ground, the bomb in his pocket ignited. Gary Sinigi exploded in flames. The tunnel behind him was illuminated for at least 100 feet. Sinigi screamed for a few seconds. Then he burned in silence, a human torch in his cellar. He had gone straight to hell. It was finally over. I was back in Washington early on Tuesday. I tried not to be upset by Siniji's horrible death, or his threat against me. I lived with worse from him in the past. Sinigi was dead and gone from all our lives. On Wednesday, I had to go to the office to start closing down the Sinigi case. I wasn't thrilled that I had killed him, but I was glad it was over. Everything but the blasted paperwork. I got home around 6. I walked in the front door of my house, and all hell broke loose. Nana and the kids were standing before me in the living room. So were Samson, several detective friends, neighbors, my aunties, a few uncles, and all their kids. "Surprise, Alex! Surprise! What the hell's going on here?" Toward the back of the room, I could see Christine, at least her smiling face. I waved at her, even as I was being hugged and pounded on the back by all my best friends in the world. It's not usually a very charitable idea to celebrate the death of another human being, but in this case, I thought a party was a terrific idea. There was dancing to everything, from Marcellus to hip-hop. Nana even danced some. Samson ran the barbecue in the backyard, featuring hot and spicy sausages, barbecued chicken, and more ribs than you would need for a Redskins tailgate party. I grabbed some slow dances with Christine as the sun set, and the night progressed. The fit of our bodies was still magical and right. Samson and I drank way too much beer, and then some B&B on the back porch, after everyone else was long gone. "Now, that was a hell of a party," John said. "The all-singing, all-dancing model. It was pretty damn good." We were on the porch, looking over Nana's garden of wildflowers, her daffodils that had bloomed so abundantly in the spring, looking over the remains of the party. It was late. It was already tomorrow. The wildflower garden had been there since we were kids. "You remember the first summer we met?" I asked John. "You called me watermelon ass, which burned me because it was complete bullshit. I had a tight butt even then. We tangled good in Nana's garden. I couldn't believe you would tangle with me. Nobody else would do that. Still don't. Even back then, you didn't know your limitations. Samson pulled himself up, off the sagging back porch step. God willing, I'm going to walk on home. Actually, I'm going to see Walker's house. The beautiful diva left the party a little early, but she was kind enough to give me a key. Thanks for the party. Samson waved goodbye, saluted, and then he went around the corner of the house, which he bumped on the way out. I came fully awake, and I wondered what I was afraid of. What the hell was happening here? My first conscious fear was that I was having a heart attack in my own bed. My heart was pounding loudly, thundering in my chest. I thought that I had heard a deep, low pounding noise from somewhere inside the house. The noise was close. It sounded as if a heavy weight, maybe a club, had been striking something down the hallway. My eyes weren't adjusted to the darkness yet. I listened for another noise. Before I realized what was happening, a shadowy figure rose from the other side of the bed. Sinigi. He's kept his promise. He's here in the house. The attacker screamed and swung at me with a large club of some sort. I felt a powerful blow to my shoulder. Oh! My whole body went numb. I tried to scream, but suddenly I had no voice. I couldn't scream. I could barely move. The club descended swiftly again. This time, it struck my lower back. Someone was trying to beat me to death. Jesus God, I thought. I thought of the loud pounding sounds. Had he gone to Nana's room first? Damon and Jani's. What was happening in our house? I reached for him and managed to grab his arm. I yanked it hard, and he shrieked again. A high-pitched sound, but definitely a man's voice. Sinigi. How could it be? I'd seen him die in the tunnels of Grand Central Station. What was happening to me? Who was in my bedroom? Who was upstairs in our house? Jani. Damon. I finally mumbled. Tried to call to them. Nana! Nana! I began scratching at his chest. His arms felt something sticky, probably drawing blood. I was fighting with only one arm and barely able to do that. Who are you? What are you doing? Damon! Damon! I called out again. He broke loose, and I fell out of the bed, face first. My whole body was on fire. I began to throw up on the carpet. The bat, the sledgehammer, the crowbar, whatever the hell it was, came down again. It seemed to split me in two. I was burning up with pain. Axe! It had to be an axe. I could feel and smell blood everywhere, around me on the floor. My blood?
I told you there was no way to stop me! I told you!
I looked up and thought I recognized the face looming above me. Gary? Sinigi? Could it possibly be Sinigi? How could it possibly be? It couldn't! I understood that I was dying, and I didn't want to die. I wanted to run, to see my kids one more time. Just one more look at them. I knew I couldn't stop the attack. Knew there was nothing I could do to stop this horror from happening. I thought of Nana and Jani, Damon, Christine. My heart ached for them. And I let God do his will. Fifth Street was blocked off and completely barricaded to traffic. John Sampton abandoned his black Nissan and ran the rest of the way to Alex's house. Metro Police personnel were still arriving at the confused, noisy, throbbing scene. Sampson pushed his way past the neighborhood looky-loos. People were crying everywhere Sampson looked. People he knew, neighbors and friends of Alex. He heard Alex's name being spoken in whispers. As he reached the familiar wooden picket fence that surrounded the Cross property, he heard something that turned his stomach inside out. They were all dead inside. The whole Cross family gone. A pock-faced woman in the crowd was shooting off her mouth. He spun around toward the source of the words, toward the hurt. Sampson gave the woman a glazed look and pushed forward into the yard, past collapsible sawhorses and yellow crime scene tape. He took the front porch steps in 2 long, athletic strides and nearly collided with EMS medics, hurrying a litter out of the living room. Sampson stopped cold in the Cross's front porch. He couldn't believe any of this. Little Jani was on the litter, and she looked so small. He bent over, then collapsed hard on his knees. A low moan escaped from his mouth. He was no longer strong, no longer brave. His heart was breaking, and he choked back a sob. When she saw him, Jani started to cry. "Uncle John! Uncle John!" She said his name in the tiniest, saddest hurt voice. Sampson leaned in close to Jani, his goddaughter, whom he loved as if she were his own child. Her nightgown was smeared with blood. "You okay, baby?" Sampson whispered. the words catching like barbed wire in his throat. "I'm going to be back here with you in a minute. You're okay, Jenny. I need to run upstairs. I'll be right back, baby. Be right back, I promise you." "What about Damon? What about my daddy?" Jenny whispered as she softly cried. "Everybody's okay, baby." "They're okay," Samson whispered again. The EMS medics did their best to wave Samson away, and they carried Jenny down to a waiting ambulance. He pushed his way into the house, which was crowded with police, both street officers and detectives. Samson bolted up the narrow, twisting stairs to the second floor of the house. He rushed into Damon's room and let out a deep moan. The boy was being transferred from his bed to a litter. He looked worse than Jenny. The side of his face was beaten raw. One of Damon's eyes were closed, swollen twice its size. Gary Sinigi was dead. He'd gone down in Grand Central Station. He couldn't have done this horrible thing in Alex's house. And yet, he had promised that he would. A detective named Rakeem Powell grabbed him by the shoulder, grabbed him hard and shook him. "Damon's all right, John. Somebody came in here, beat the living hell out of the kids. Looks like he just used fists, hard punches." Samson pushed Rakeem away, threw him off impatiently. "What about Alex? Nana?" "Nana was beaten bad. Bus driver found her on the street. Took her to St. Tony's. She's conscious, but she's an old woman. Skin rips when they're old. Alex got shot in his bedroom, John. They're up there with him." Samson broke away from Rakeem Powell and tried to go into Alex's bedroom, but he was held back by men he didn't know. Probably FBI, from the look of them. Kyle Craig was in the room. He knew that much. The FBI was here already. "Tell Kyle I'm here," he told the men at the door. "Tell Kyle Craig it's Samson." One of the FBI agents ducked inside. Kyle came out immediately, pushed his way into the hall to Samson. "Kyle! What the hell?" Samson tried to talk. "Kyle, what happened?"
He's been shot, twice. Shot and beaten. I need to talk to you, John.
Samson's body slumped heavily against the wall. He asked Kyle how he'd gotten here so fast. Kyle had an answer. Always had an answer for everything. Still, nothing was really making any sense to Samson, not a word of it. He was looking at something over the FBI man's shoulder. Samson couldn't believe it. Through the window, he could see an FBI helicopter. It was landing on a vacant lot just across 5th Street. Things were getting stranger and stranger. A figure lurched out of the helicopter, crouched under the propellers, then started toward the Cross house. The man was tall and slender, with dark sunglasses, the kind with small, round lenses. His long blonde hair was bound in a ponytail. He didn't look like FBI. There was definitely something different about him, something radical for the Bureau. He almost looked angry as he pushed the looky-loos away. He also looked as if he were in charge, at least in charge of himself. "Who the hell is that?" he asked Kyle Craig. "Who is that, Kyle? Who's that goddamn ponytail asshole?"
My name is Thomas Pierce, but the press usually calls me Doc. I was once a medical student at Harvard. I graduated, but never worked a day in a hospital, never practiced medicine. Now I'm part of the behavioral science unit of the FBI. I was rushed from the training compound in Quantico to Washington early that morning. I had been ordered to help investigate the attack on Dr. Alex Cross and members of his immediate family. To be candid, I didn't want to be involved in the case for a number of reasons. Most important, I was already part of a difficult investigation, one that had drained nearly all of my energy. The Mr. Smith case. The vicious attack on Cross would mean major headlines and put intense pressure on both the Washington police and the Bureau. I was there on 5th Street for the simplest of reasons, to relieve the pressure. I felt an unpleasant aura, residue from the recent violence, as I approached the tidy, white-shingled Cross house. Some policemen I passed were red-eyed, and a few seemed almost to be in shock. I wondered if Alex Cross had died since I had left Quantico. I already had a sixth sense for the terrible and unexpected violence that had taken place inside the modest, peaceful-looking house. I wished that none of the others were at the crime scene so I could absorb everything without all these distractions. That was what I had been brought here to do. Observe the scene of unbelievable mayhem, get a gut feeling for what might have happened in the early hours of the morning, figure everything out quickly, and